They're bringing the woolly mammoth back, and I want to know why. Basically, the idea is that they are thinking that they can do things like affect climate change or like save the elephants from extinction by bringing the woolly mammoth back, but I don't really understand why. Like, how are you saving the climate this way? How are you helping out the elephant? I think that one's a little bit more self-explanatory, but I got questions, so let's look into it. Okay, so it looks like so just like the basics of how they are planning to bring it back, they are planning to either clone an existing woolly mammoth DNA sample that they have, because I guess they're finding lots of DNA samples frozen in the tundra, or like in the fossil record. So they have actual DNA. So they're planning to maybe clone a woolly mammoth to bring it back. I think that worked for a hot minute, but then the baby mammoth that they brought back only lived for like 2 weeks or something. So that one's not working out so hot. The other option is artificial insemination with frozen woolly mammoth sperm. So they're going to try and artificially inseminate a living elephant to use an elephant as like a surrogate woolly mammoth mama and see if they can do it that way. I don't think there has been much success with that because I think sperm that's frozen doesn't last for very long. So it's not super viable. And the other option they're trying is the CRISPR, using the gene editing software or technology known as CRISPR to like sequence the genes, and then I think that's also being artificially inseminated into a elephant, and then the elephant would give birth. So they've actually already tried this on mice. I think they were just successful. So they did this where they created these woolly mice, where they took a regular mouse right here, sequenced the genes of the little baby mouse inside of the embryo, and then when the baby mouse came out, it was woolly like this. So they're hoping they can do this with like an elephant embryo. Although to be clear, they're like a long ways off still. Just because you have hair and things doesn't mean that you are also going to get all of the things that you need to have a mammoth. But I mean, it's pretty incredible stuff. Taking this mouse and being like, we're going to change your DNA, rewrite it so that now you have this long, fluffy hair. It's pretty incredible. And my first thought when I read this was people going to get wings. You know, people are going to want like body modifications in the future if this ends up turning out like this is probably going to be a long ways in the future, but people are going to want to breathe underwater and that kind of thing. Anyways, so that's the basics. What I learned about how it's going to affect the ecosystem is that woolly mammoths lived in the cold, right? At least that's what they tell me. So the woolly mammoths are up there in the cold with all of the other animals like the deer and the caribou and whatnot that live up there. And they are grazing, eating food, and keeping all of the grasses alive and well with dung and just like, I don't know, using the grazing mechanics to keep everything alive. That is keeping the tundra frozen, which I don't know. I had thought like if you apparently the grassland and the grasses are helping to keep the tundra frozen, which is what we want because we don't want the carbon that is stored in the tundra to be released. So they're thinking it's going to be like a climate change option to prevent climate change because the woolly mammoths are keeping the tundra frozen. That way the carbon that is frozen in the tundra doesn't get released. Super basic understanding thus far. I'm going to keep digging. I mean, I feel like this is a pretty interesting topic. Like all of the work that they're doing to try and bring the mammoth back is going to, I feel like could be pretty directly applicable for other species. Like if there are species like the dodo bird or something that are already extinct, like the mammoth, you could bring them back potentially. Or if there are species right now that are in danger, you could boost their numbers by kind of like artificially boosting their population numbers. I'm going to keep looking and poking around for a bit. Okay. Also, the other reason that they have been citing as their motivation to bring back the woolly mammoth is that they would like to save the elephants from extinction. Because I didn't know this, but the elephants, especially the African elephant, is on the list. Especially the African elephant are on the list or on the endangered species list due to loss of habitat and also poaching. So there's ivory poachers trying to get their tusks, and also the like deforestation is contributing to putting elephants on the endangered species list. So I'm guessing, like with the woolly mammoth, they're hoping that, like I was thinking before, like boost the population numbers, boost the numbers by, like if you can breed a woolly mammoth and then also have an elephant like get together with it, you could help the numbers a little bit. Like I'm not exactly sure how they're expecting like woolly mammoths to help save the elephant population. Are they hoping that they can just use CRISPR to like sequence or to just like artificially create elephants to boost the numbers? I'm not sure what they think. I'm curious as to how it will affect like the ecosystems of the species that it's like. If you actually get some woolly mammoths and you create a herd, where are you going to put them? And how is that going to affect like how things have changed? Because times have changed a lot since the woolly mammoths were around. It's not the same world as it was when they were here. If you just take a new species that is freaking ginormous, like 11 feet tall, put it into an ecosystem, how is that going to affect things? Is it going to, like, are the animals that are already there going to be displaced? Let's look into it a little bit. This one. I feel like that argument does not hold water. So ecosystem concerns are a real thing, but the people that are doing this have some reasons. I don't know that I agree with. One of the things that they're thinking is that, so like I was saying before, they're hoping that the grasses will grow back. Like, because the woolly mammoths used to live in the tundra, they would walk around and trample down all of the like bushes and large things that were like kind of creeping up. But if you bring them back, they'll trample down all those grasses. The manure and feces will also kind of help to fertilize the grasses and turn it back into a grassland instead of like a shrubby plain. And this will keep the ice and the frozen stuff in the tundra, where the carbon and emissions and all that stuff can't get released back into the atmosphere if the tundra melts, which is great in theory. But like I was saying before, ecosystems are kind of fragile in general. If you just introduce a new species to them, they're not going to do very well. There's a lot of examples of different animals being introduced to ecosystems and wreaking freaking havoc. I mean, invasive, like if you are curious, just look up invasive species. There are so many examples. So one of the arguments that people are using for why this is a good idea is that the ecosystem in the tundra is already in shambles. It's already really messed up. According to them, I didn't look into it, but they're like, you can't really mess it up anymore. So we can only go up from here, is one of the arguments they're using. The other thing that they're saying is that like there have been examples in the past when a species was introduced that was really helpful. Like I guess a while ago there was wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone Park, which had really positive effects. So they're kind of pointing to that wolves being introduced to Yellowstone as an example of how this could succeed. Another thing I was looking into was the ethical concerns. People are worried about the ethics of this, which I feel like, I don't know if ethics is necessarily the right word, but they're like, you can't just put all this time and resources into recreating the mammoth. Like, we could use those resources elsewhere. We could put that money to something good, which in my brain, I feel like, I mean, if you want to put that money towards something good, then do it. I feel like you shouldn't really be getting annoyed at people who are like actually trying to do something, even if you might not necessarily agree. There's like so many different applications this technology could be used for. Why would you get annoyed because they're putting it towards something specific that might not necessarily be best use case when it could very clearly be used for other things? One of the arguments they're using to kind of say that this is like a good thing is the reversal test, which is if you just think about it from the perspective of if we already had this animal, like if it was an African elephant and we were trying not to save them or not to keep them from going extinct, would we? And if the answer is, of course not, we would obviously try and save the elephants, then they're thinking, well, of course not. Why would you not try and save the mammoths? Like if we have the technology, why not try and save them? Which I feel like is I don't feel like that argument is very sound. Another ethical concern is that people are worried that if this does work out, then the drive to save species will be less urgent, which I feel like is like directly contrary to what I just said. Oh man, I feel like the arguments against this are really dumb. If you figure out how to bring a species back from extinction, then all of the species that are currently about to go extinct, people will just be like, you know, it's not a big deal. We could just bring them back later. Which I mean, maybe. I don't know. I feel like that it's unlikely at best. Anyways, I'm going to keep looking into some other stuff. Who is funding this? Oh, this is an authoritative source. Okay. So Colossal is the company the company that is trying to bring back the mammoth is called Colossal, and this is their website. And it's kind of a dope website, if I'm being honest. And they are initially, when they were trying to get funded, they got $15 million to begin research, and then like 5 months later, they got an additional 60 million from this guy right here, Thomas Toll, who's the CEO of Tolco. Oh, it's an oil company. Anyway, this guy Thomas is a billionaire, and he's well known for philanthropy and funding focusing on sustainability and regenerative technologies. Although I read somewhere that he was doing something else. I'm always skeptical when billionaires invest in things. It's possible that he's doing it because he just wants to be like do good things and help out because he got the money to do it. But also, it's like seems like one of those things like you see in a show where the billionaire is like, I'm going to invest in this thing because it's going to make me look good, but also because I'm going to use it to acquire every level in the process of manufacturing the thing that I sell. Like he's already got an oil company. Tolco is an oil company, and he's a billionaire. So I don't know if that's really relevant. I just feel like it makes me suspicious. How does that work? Clustered in. Interesting. Whoa. This is so much cooler than I thought it was going to be. I started looking into CRISPR, which is the gene editing software that they're like gene editing technology that they're using to like actually try and bioengineer the woolly mammoth. And dang, this is interesting. I might need to do a video just on this. So CRISPR is an immune system used by microbiomes to find and eliminate unwanted invaders. So I don't know why I had assumed it was some like technology. Basically, I feel like sci-fi has conditioned my brain to think that computers do all the work, which I guess they probably are sort of. But this is like they have engineered an immune system used by microbiomes to find and eliminate unwanted invaders. So it's basically like they're using the RNA to like structure the proteins or something. It's like this is beyond my scope of understanding, like easily understood ability, but this is wild. So they're actually also using this as gene therapy to like you can use it to create like the woolly mammoth and like gene sequence the genes that you would need into the embryo, but you can also use it as gene therapy. So if you have a disease where there are cells in the body that are like going to cause like sickle cell anemia, any other diseases or mutations, you can use CRISPR to get rid of those cells, modify those cells so that your body is not, so that your body's doing good things instead of bad things. So that your body's cells are attacking toxic cells or regenerating beneficial cells, which is freaking dope. Anyways, maybe we'll continue this topic in the next video. Peace.